Hi guys, I'm Nicola McKenzie, founder and mortgage advisor here at DM Mortgages, and in today's video I'm going to be sharing with you common mistakes that people make when they are purchasing a leasehold property. So to find out more so that you can avoid those mistakes, stay tuned. So first off, let's take a look at what leasehold actually even means. Now, usually, like I say, when you're buying a flat or an apartment in England, it's typically on a leasehold basis. Now, sometimes houses can be leasehold as well, but in the main, the majority of flats and apartments or apartment style, maisonettes, that kind of thing, will usually be on a leasehold basis as it sits within a larger building. Now, when you're buying a leasehold property, essentially what you're doing is purchasing a lease from what's called the freeholder. So the freeholder is the person or the management company that owns the larger building. And you as the leaseholder have the right to live in the property for a set number of years. Now, you won't technically own the property outright. The freeholder, or the landlord if you like, will continue to own the property and the ground that the property sits on. So now let's take a look at some of the common mistakes that people make when they're buying a leasehold property. Now, the first common mistake that people often make when they're purchasing a leasehold property is buying a property with a short lease. Now, typically a lease runs anything up to generally 999 years. That's usually applicable to new build properties though. So if you're buying a resale property, a typical lease length is going to be 99 years, maybe 125 years, and everything in between. Now, where the mistake can sometimes be made is that people will agree and make an offer and have an offer accepted on a property where the length of the lease is too short for mortgage lenders to consider offering a mortgage. Now, bear in mind, there isn't one blanket rule as to what the lease length has to be in order for you to get a mortgage, because every mortgage lender is going to have their own criteria on how long the lease needs to be. But generally speaking, I would say that you need to be particularly cautious. 85 years or less is the point where some lenders may not be willing to consider offering you a mortgage on that property. Now, it's also worth bearing in mind that if you are purchasing a property where the lease is less than 85 years, like I say, it's possible that that property you can still get a mortgage on it, but you have to bear in mind that when you come to sell the property or remortgage the property, you may have difficulty unless you plan on extending the lease. So I think going for a property where the lease is less than 85 years, I think that there has to be a level of acceptance from the buyer that you need to be taking that property on, expecting or under the assumption that you will at some point need to extend the lease. And it's worth bearing in mind that lease extensions can be costly. So it's just worth being mindful and aware of that, and being aware or getting at least as accurate a cost indication that you can of what the extension to that lease might cost you and set you back. Now, if you've done your due diligence on a property and it ticks all of your boxes, or it's particularly well priced, so it's still something you want to go ahead with even though the lease is less than 85 years, it's not to say that you cannot get a mortgage, it's just that we have to apply a lot more due diligence in terms of which lender we might be placing you with. And that's why, just to stress, it's really important that you get advice from the team here at Dunham McCarthy, because again, we can help you to avoid these pitfalls, or at least make sure that your mortgage application has still got the best chance of success. Now, the next point that I want to highlight here is when you're buying a leasehold property using a small deposit. Now, buying a leasehold property using a small deposit isn't necessarily a mistake, but what is a mistake is not choosing the lender that you are applying to carefully. So generally speaking, the capital growth on flats is typically not the same as houses, and for that reason, a lot of mortgage lenders will ask you to put a higher deposit on a leasehold purchase compared to if you were buying a house. Particularly if you are buying a new build leasehold property, then in some cases, or in many cases, they ask for an even higher deposit. It's not uncommon for some mortgage lenders to ask for as much as a 25% deposit where you're buying a new build leasehold property. Now, by using a small deposit, what I'm talking about here is generally anything less than 15%. So if you're considering buying a leasehold property with a 5 or a 10% deposit, I'm not talking about the Help to Buy scheme, that works slightly differently, but 5 to 10% deposit, anything less than 15%, then we need to make sure that we're doing our due diligence with which lender you are applying with, because it's not to say you cannot get a mortgage. And again, if you check out my recent video, which was a case study on somebody we managed to help with a 5% deposit who was buying a flat. But again, you just need to make sure that you get specialist advice from us, because some banks, for example, HSBC, Nationwide, mainstream banks, will ask for as much as a 15% deposit in these cases. And again, you could be in the best financial position, have the best credit rating, purely on the basis that you're buying a flat, they need that higher deposit. So to avoid your application being rejected and wasting time when you come to apply for a mortgage, and time is of the essence when you're buying a property, because if your process takes too long, sellers can get anxious and sellers can pull out on a sale, and that's not what you want. We need to make sure and help you to make sure that we are choosing the right lender for your situation that's going to be most accommodating, not just with your personal circumstances, but also based on the type of property that you are purchasing. Now, if you are watching this video, then I assume that potentially you're looking to buy a property using a mortgage, move home, or review an existing mortgage. Now, if you trust the content on this channel and you've been finding it valuable and useful, then imagine the value that you would get from us helping you with your own mortgage. Now, we're here to help you get the best mortgage deal from thousands of products from lots of high street banks and building societies, as well as specialist lenders as well. Compare all of your options to find you the best deals. Now, head over to our website, dm.mortgage, and book in for a free of charge appointment today. We can help you no matter where you're based in the UK, and we can give you your options and provide you with advice so that you know exactly where to go and what to do next. And of course, if you're finding this video useful up until now, then you need to hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so that you never miss a future upload. But now let's get back to the video. Now, the next mistake that's commonly made when people are purchasing a leasehold property is choosing the wrong mortgage lender. And this kind of ties into my previous point about small deposits. Now, again, you need advice when you're buying leasehold properties. The reason being is because let's say that you go directly to a bank and you get an agreement in principle. The agreement in principle might pass, but at that point, you haven't found the property yet. So when you've not found a property, the lender isn't doing due diligence on the type of property. Now, it's not just asking for a bigger deposit that lenders have an issue with when it comes to leasehold properties. There are so many different points in lenders' criteria that they will apply when you are buying a leasehold property, but here are some of the common ones. So some lenders, for example, flat out will not accept ex-local authority properties. Some may accept ex-local authority properties, but they may insist that they want a certain amount of private ownership in the building. So it's not uncommon for a lender to say, we will give you the mortgage on this property, but we expect at least half of the properties in this building to be owned by private individuals. Again, the reason for that is because they feel that that could adversely affect the value of the property in the future if there's not a certain amount of private residence in the block. Some lenders, for example, won't lend on a leasehold property or a flat or an apartment if there is no lift beyond, say, the 5th floor, or if there are a certain number of floors that exceed their maximum limit. So if you're in a high rise, for example, where there's 20 or 30 floors in the block, then some lenders won't accept that type of property. Some lenders won't lend where there's shared or communal balcony access. These are just a few examples of many that I could give you where some lenders have an issue with offering mortgages on flats or apartments. Now, as I discussed earlier, each lender has their own criteria on these particular specifications. So this isn't trying to scare you about buying a leasehold property, but what I am just trying to do is explain to you why you do need specialist advice when you're buying a leasehold property, because there are lots of things to consider. It's not just about your personal circumstances. Now, the next mistake that people make when purchasing a leasehold property is not getting a full understanding as to how their lease works, just generally, but more specifically around things like ground rents and service charges. Now, when you're buying a leasehold property, you'll usually have to consider paying ongoing costs called ground rent and or service charges. And also remember to factor this into your monthly budgeting. Now, the service charge is the amount of money that you as a leaseholder has to pay to cover the costs of the person that owns the building or the company that own the building in terms of providing communal and shared access and services to the building and the surrounding grounds if applicable. Now, these costs would usually be to cover things like maintenance, repairs to the structure of the building, any common parts, the cost of buildings insurance, etc. You get the idea. Now, ground rent, on the other hand, is the money that leaseholders pay to the freeholder to occupy the land that the property is built upon. And this is usually paid, again, directly to the freeholder or via a management company. Now, a point I want to raise is that sometimes, depending on the property you're buying, the ground rent and the service charges can sometimes be expensive. But not only that, sometimes there can be clauses written into the lease that mean that these costs over the years can increase quite significantly. In some cases, it's not unknown that they can double over time. So to avoid any nasty surprises, you just need to be aware on what the conditions are around these costs. But also in respect of mortgage lenders, because that's obviously my area of expertise, and here at Dunham Mortgages, mortgage lenders can be known to decline a case if the terms of the lease do not fit their criteria. So giving you an example, some lenders might insist that the ground rent is a maximum of £250 or 0.1% of the purchase price of the property, whichever figure is higher. That's just an example of one lender I can think of and their criteria around ground rents. Now, this isn't going to be the same with every lender. So again, if you're buying a property where the ground rent exceeds that, it's not to say you cannot get a mortgage, but again, we just need to have to apply some additional research to make sure that your mortgage is with the most appropriate lender. Now, lenders, it's worth me noting as well that mortgage lenders will factor in ground rent and service charge in terms of the affordability assessment. Again, just highlighting why it's so important to get advice, because let's say that you've gone direct to a bank for an agreement in principle. That could be the difference between your application declining and being accepted, because the bank isn't going to know that you're necessarily planning on buying a flat. So when you get to an application and when they do their application assessment, at that point, it could be that they turn around and say, factoring in the service charge and ground rent, this mortgage is no longer affordable to you. So you could have avoided all of that hassle by just making sure that you get proper advice, because banks aren't going to tell you that kind of thing. So the point here isn't to deter you from buying a leasehold property, but what I am trying to just make you aware of is some of the pitfalls and just making sure that you do your due diligence and get proper advice and specialist advice from us, certainly in respect of your mortgage. Mortgages are complicated, and that's why we're here as the experts to help to make it simple. So make sure that you get in touch with us, whether you're buying a leasehold or a freehold property for that matter, because we deal with lots of different scenarios and we work with lots of different banks, from high street to specialist lenders, to compare mortgage deals and get the best deal for your circumstances and help you to get the highest chance of acceptance when you do come to find the right property and apply for a mortgage. So you can head over to our website, which is dm.mortgage, and you can book in there for a free of charge appointment so that we can do a full analysis of your situation and help you to purchase a property. And make sure that if you've enjoyed that video, you hit that subscribe button, and don't forget to hit the notification bell as well so that you never miss a future upload from me. And until next time, see you soon.